Since June? No, she hasn't made much noise.
We know that. We know that.
Him and Meg, they should be getting better.
All right.
Good evening.
Just trying to be helpful.
Thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Roger Roberts. I'm the chairman of the board of the San Diego East County Chamber of Commerce. This is an event that we attempt to put on a regular basis when candidates are running for office to give the public an opportunity to hear what they have to say so that you can make an informed decision about how you might vote. The first thing I'd like to do is thank Bob Garber, who is the interim president of Cuyamaca College, and also Cindy Miles, who's the chancellor of Grossmont and Cuyamaca College District, for making this facility open and available to us for this debate. My time up here is short. I'd now like to introduce our moderator, Steve Hammond, who will be moderating the debate for you this evening. I'd like to, the last thing before I have Steve come to the podium, sometimes things get heated a little bit in political debates. I would like to ask everybody to please be respectful of others. Please do not hold up any signs that would block other people's view. And please be respectful of the people sitting next to you and in front of you and back of you. Thank you very much. Steve Hammond.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get started right away. We have a limited time, and we want to make sure that we get as many questions in as possible. First thing we need to make sure is that everyone has either silenced or turned off their cell phone. Please make sure you do that. We want to be respectful of the candidates, and sometimes it's difficult with those kinds of interruptions. The general rules this evening are as follows. Each candidate will each receive 3 minutes in which to introduce themselves. After that point in time, we'll begin with the questions. As you know, the questions are coming from the audience. There is no live microphone this evening. All questions should be written on a 3x5 card and sent to the center aisle, where we'll have representatives of the chamber picking those up. Those questions are being brought up here to the front. They're being sorted by topic, and then they're brought to me to ask the questions. When I ask a question, each candidate will have 1 minute in which to answer that question. Following that 1 minute answer, once each candidate has had that chance, then we will give each candidate a chance to respond to those answers. Again, please be respectful to all of those here this evening, the audience as well as the candidate. And we will start with Michael Benoit.
Good evening, and thanks for being here. Can you hear me? Yes. All right, great. I've been running for Congress since 2000. The year 2000, this is my 6th run. You might ask why do you keep doing that, especially as a libertarian, when there's a very small chance to win. And basically, my whole purpose is about the restoration of our inalienable rights that have been usurped by government over the decades. Little by little, with each piece of legislation, we've lost a right, and that's how it's been infringed on. Now, first off, I want to cover the fact that the election is rigged. And the election is pretty well rigged in all the districts around the country, except for maybe about 50 of them. In about 50 districts, there's competition. And the rest of them, they're gerrymandered, especially in California, for one party or the other. And that's why you find that we're not in a lot larger auditorium than this, packed, because the system is broken in the way that it has stolen the interest in the political process. Whether you be in this district that's heavily laden for Republican voters with 146,000 to 106,000 Democrats, with approximately 75,000 registered as other, or in Bob Filner's district where it's slanted the other way. This is really destructive to our process. Not only is it we're process rigged, as we enter public school and we go through the public school process, we find that we're told that you got to vote for the Democrat or the Republican because the reality is only one or two of those can actually win the election. And that's what we're told growing up. Well, that reality, folks, has led to a stagnant pool of water. And you've got left or right, the same paradigm going to Washington, and in the process, you have a system that's totally broken. Last night, Duncan said that the economy was improving up in Crest. And when I heard that, I went, wow, the economy's improving. The economy is the worst it's been in decades, if not half a century. The national debt exceeds $13.3 trillion. The federal budget deficit is over over $1.5 trillion. We're embroiled in 2 wars in the Middle East. Unemployment is at record highs. Social Security is about to go bust. The Federal Reserve is printing money nonstop. And there's a dam of hyperinflation about to burst. The welfare state is about to collapse. All level governments are on the verge of bankruptcy. Home foreclosures are hitting record highs, and much more. We're in deep trouble, folks.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Duncan.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Duncan, and let me give you a little background first, just really quick. I went to Granite Hills High School here, went to San Diego State University, joined the Marine Corps, did 3 tours, got out, ran for Congress last year. I've been in Congress now for about 23 months, and it's my honor to be here with you tonight. It's my honor to be taking part in this process because this is what it's all about. It's a beautiful San Diego day, and I'm just happy to be here. So thank all of you for coming, taking your own time out to come and see what's going on. I think that that's one of the greatest things about the nation and what's happening right now is the movement for individual citizens to find out what's going on, to go on the internet, to look at candidates, to actually see who's paying for what ads as opposed to just looking at those nice ads on the radio or television. We have to find out what's really going on. So that's why I really appreciate all of you being here so we can find out what's really going on. I've been in Congress for 23 months, and I think that the liberals in Congress and in the administration and in the Senate, the House, and activist judges have hijacked America. It's that simple. I think that there's been a systematic destruction of the American economy. And when I said that the economy is improving, people tend to do this to politicians sometimes. He took me out of context. I said the American economy is improving in spite of what the liberals have been doing to it, in spite of cap and trade, in spite of the stimulus, in spite of George Bush's TARP. We're recovering in spite of that. We're recovering in spite of the false housing bottom, in spite of it being hard to get money now for people to borrow money for their commercial projects or to build residential homes. We're recovering in spite of what's happened the last 23 months. The economy has been hijacked. The government now takes over businesses. If they think that they can take you over, then they take you over. That's not America. And any government that is powerful enough to take over private citizens' companies, whether it's the vehicle dealership by Fashion Valley or the entire GM company, is a scary and dangerous government, and not something that we ought to be behind. So that's what I've been doing. I've been focusing on the economy, on jobs, on security in Iraq and Afghanistan, and on border security here at home as a national security issue. And let me tell you, my little brother just got back from Iraq about a month ago, Sam, and he's in town. I got to see him. I got to see him for the very first time yesterday after his tour, and I cannot stress to you, even though these things don't get printed here very often in the UT or any other local news, one of my main focuses is making sure that our military men and women who we send to war have the very best equipment around, and that they're as protected as they can be so they can go after the enemy, prosecute the enemy as safely as possible. And my little brother returned home safe, and that's one of the reasons he was able to. So we're a happy family right now. We're excited about Sam being home, excited about the election. Thank you all for just being here tonight. Appreciate it.
welcome Ray Lutz. Excuse me, Ray, before you get started, ladies and gentlemen, please remember that your candidate only has a certain amount of time to respond. The longer that you applaud, the less time that they will have to respond. I will start it now, but please, in the future, please keep that in mind. Go ahead, Mr. Lutz.
Thank you very much. Hello? Can you hear me now? Okay. Ray Lutz, running for U.S. Congress, House of Representatives, 52nd District. Now, I grew up in the East County. I'm the people's candidate. I'm your candidate. I'm here to represent you. I don't take any money from PACs. I don't take money from special interests. And this is a big difference between my campaign and the other campaigns. Now, my background is that I'm an engineer, I'm an educator, I'm an entrepreneur. I built businesses, I've hired people, run payroll. I've had big businesses involved in big businesses and small businesses. I've worked in startup businesses where you work your butt off and try to make it go. For the past few years, I've been working with the community against projects like trying to keep Blackwater out of Potrero, stopping the Sunrise Power Link, and other projects that people in the backcountry know were bad projects for them. And so I have had more connection with the community in the last few years than I had in my other career. Now, I'm running to have us move away from business as usual, where we're going down what looks like, as you heard from Michael Benoit, a very dim picture. And we've got to get more jobs. Jobs is the most important issue on our plate right now. We've got to do something active to actually create those jobs here, because it's really the most important job of government, I believe, to keep jobs in this country. Do not export them to India and China. How to get jobs here. Now, you can spend money building a bomb, a road, or a solar energy system. You're going to employ people as you do that. But when you build the bomb and you blow up a bridge somewhere and then you rebuild it, all your money leaves and goes to another country somewhere. If you build a road or bridge here, it's better. They just built one by Hoover Dam. People are going to be able to get across a lot faster. So it makes our economy work better. We get a benefit from that. But when you build a solar energy system and you retrofit all the homes throughout the U.S. and businesses, then we're not spending money buying that energy from Indonesia, Russia, Middle East, and other countries that is a national security threat to do, and that's money that we save. In this county alone, we would save about $4 billion if we did this. Think about $4 billion in our pocket. That's where the real jobs come from, and that's my vision for how we can turn it around. We've got to get on the stick. The sun in 8 minutes puts out enough power on our planet so that we can have enough energy for a whole year of what we're doing. There's enough energy there. I believe we have to turn away from unending war. The military-industrial complex is making a profit on these, so I believe we have to wind those down. Now, I want to thank the Chamber very much for getting this set up. We've had other debates, and I want to thank Duncan Hunter for showing up for this debate. Thank you very much.
Our first question, we'll start with Duncan Hunter on the answer. Our youth is our future, and so we are going to start with a young man from the 5th grade, age 10, from Murdoch Elementary, asked the question, what would you do to help public education?
Number one, to help public education in this state, let's be particular about this state, California, $20 billion deficit. And we all know who are the very first people always say we have to fire when we have an economic crisis. Who are they? Teachers, police, and firefighters. Total baloney. There's people in Sacramento that get paid to pass this paper to that person. Those bureaucrats need to be fired so we can save educators. Competition works in schools. Let the money follow students. Competition works. Let one school that's doing well in math, they're going to start attracting kids to that school because parents want to send them there. It makes other schools get better. And you've got to push everything down to the lowest level. Federal government should not be telling local level schools what they need to do and don't do. But what's happened is states like California, have become so beholden to the federal money coming in, they're unable to get out from under its grasp. So why should your tax money go to other schools in other states that might be failing or may not be failing? It should be local tax money, follow those students in school competition, let people send their kids where they want to send their kids.
Once again, candidate Lutz, what would you do to help public education?
Thank you very much. Now, I just got done reading a book. I recommend that you read it. It's by Diana Rabbit. She was somebody that was behind the competition movement, behind the charter school movement, was one of the proponents of No Child Left Behind. She's turned around. She said, none of that works, you know, and it doesn't. This idea of competition, ask the expert. Go read that book. Competition does not work. It does not solve the problem, and that's the reason No Child Left Behind isn't working, one of the reasons. Now, they just saw in the paper just yesterday, or maybe it was today, they had a school, a public school, that was turned around. Had nothing to do with competition. It had nothing to do with bogus No Child Left Behind, which was designed to fail. You cannot have 100% of your students proficient, okay? They said everybody has to be proficient or you're a school in need of improvement. And then they say privatize, charterize, competition, all these. And she said, and she's an expert here, none of it works. Their corrective measures did not work. Having local neighborhood public schools and fix them at home, that's what I believe will work for us. We got to have standard curriculums.
Candidate Benoit, once again, what would you do to help public education?
Well, the better question is, what would you do to help education in general? And by doing that, you would also help public education. First off, you get rid of the Federal Department of Education that does not educate anyone. $50 billion a year at the federal level is being wasted on the bureaucrats alone. Leave that money in the people's pocket that earn that money. Liberty is the answer to every problem that we face in this country, and giving parents or allowing parents to keep more of the fruits of their labor so they can engage in choosing their own schools. And competition does work, and homeschool works, and encouraging homeschoolers is another way to improve the quality of education in this country. And I can tell you story after story of homeschoolers that I know that are excelling and beating public schools at every turn. And they're not spending a lot of money to do it. So there's actually technology available today with the computers that people can learn at a fraction of the cost that we're spending in public schools.
Candidate Hunter, you have 1 minute.
Sure, thank you. One, No Child Left Behind. The reason that No Child Left Behind even exists, let me tell you, if you're going to spend your taxpayer money, if your money is going to go to other states, which it does go to other states for their education system, you want to make sure at the very least that those schools meet a certain standard. Your taxpayer money, your money that you have to give to Uncle Sam should be going at the very least. I don't think it should be going at all, period. But at the very least, it should be going to schools that actually teach kids. That's why you have No Child Left Behind. It created some standard. Competition does work, homeschooling works, and the reason that these things work, no one's mentioned the very most important thing about education, parental involvement. We all know this. Everything's got kids. My son does better when I sit home with him and I do his math homework with him. He does better. We all know how that works. We need to get parents caring about their kids, and for that to happen, I think we do have to fix the economy. We have both parents sometimes working 2 or 3 jobs to stay afloat. Create jobs. It's going to help education too. When the economy gets fixed, it's going to help everything.
Okay, standards. I heard mentioned that No Child Left Behind set a bunch of standards. Actually, it did not. So it set no standards, and that's a big problem with it. It relied upon each state to set their own standards, set their own way of testing, and there is no national curriculum standards. So this is a big problem. Apparently there's some misunderstanding that No Child Left Behind set a bunch of standards. It didn't, and this is a big failure of how it was set up. What they did standardize on how to fix the schools, and none of those things work. Going to charter schools, for example, on paper looks like it works, but it doesn't actually work. In one of the chapters in this book was about San Diego Unified School District and how that didn't work. It was about the Bloomberg experiment in New York City, where they drive an average of 90 minutes to get to school. An average of 90 minutes for the kid to get to school. That's, I think, a crime. You should revitalize those local school districts and build them up. It can be done in public arena, and we should do it.
Candidate Benoit.
Well, Duncan covered a couple of the points properly. You know, it certainly takes personal involvement, personal responsibility, and it takes, you know, competition. But it definitely doesn't take a central control scheme from the federal government controlling through the state governments down to the local governments. And you got all this mishmash of control. I know with my kids, when they entered kindergarten, they had a thirst for learning. By the time they were graduating, the thirst had gone way, way down, and had to do a lot of personal teaching to get one of my daughters actually through school. I had to drag her through all the homework and teach her what she was supposed to be learning during the day. And we don't have time to go into the craziness of some of these scenarios that they, but I remember when they were teaching phonics, they were trying to bring phonics back in, and my daughter was coming home thinking her name was Michelle. So, and they were messing that up. But frankly, we've had a lot of decay, and it's because of lack of competition more than anything else, and central control.
Our second question will begin with candidate Lutz. We are the East County out here, and we are concerned about our jobs. The question is, how do you plan to bring more jobs to East County?
Well, I already outlined my major vision for how we regenerate jobs in our nation. And we've got to do the right thing here. You know, the stimulus programs that you see, where they spend quick money and they generate some quick jobs as a result. The trouble with that is it doesn't generate the fabric of the economy that will last for very long. Once the bridge is built, what do those people do? You have to have a whole series of bridges set up. Those shovel-ready projects, you got to get them all lined up. What you want to do is not rely upon the government to send the money out for these projects. You want to incentivize small business to do it. Think of this. Right now we have Sempra Energy and SDG&E, these gigantic monolith companies. That's where we buy our power. That's who thinks about how do we do a better job with power. Now, if we had incentivized people to install these solar energy systems or whatever the technology may be, and have 1 million people with those systems thinking about how they can make more money. That's small business, that's American innovation, that's American know-how and labor. And that's what we want to put to work here. That's why I want to see 500 solar panel manufacturing plants built throughout the country. I just saw in the paper today they have some in Otay Mesa that are actually in the country. Wow. You know, instead of in China. That should be done everywhere, and we've got to block them from going over to China. We're going to incentivize it, they need to be built here. Now, there's a lot of other times up. Well, education, we need to be able to re-educate people, and right now we've got a shortage of that in our school, in our higher education. Thanks.
Two things. One, we're reversing order, and two, I forgot to push the button. And so I gave the first candidate an extra 30 seconds, and so I will give the next candidate an extra 30 seconds as well. So this goes to Congressman Hunter. How do you plan to bring more jobs to East County?
This is truly what separates liberals from conservatives. This is what separates Mr. Lutz from myself. I can't do anything to bring jobs to East County. What I can do is relieve the burdens and the taxes on you, and those jobs will appear. That's how capitalism works. That's how the market works. The government should not be picking winners and losers. I'm all for solar power. So let's do solar power. So Mr. Lutz, I suggest that you use your engineering degree and start a company. There's investors. If it's marketable, it will work. That's how the American system works. I'm a congressman. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an economist. I'm not going to say, you over there, I'm going to give you $5 million of taxpayer money so you can pursue ethanol. You over here, I'm going to give you $5 million of taxpayer money so you can pursue solar panels. If it works in this market, it'll sell. That's how the American system works. Entrepreneurs come up with things, they invent things, and they bring them Let's not talk about what government can do to bring jobs. It's how do you get government out of the way so that the American people can create jobs.
Candidate Benoit, how do you plan to bring more jobs to East County?
Okay, well, the libertarian message goes a lot further than the conservative message there, because the libertarian message actually involves getting government out of the way, not just talking about it. This federal government sucks $3.5 trillion a year out of the economy and dumps hundreds of billions of that overseas in 130 countries. They have over 700 bases. This is money that's not in the economy any longer. And then on the other side of the issue, you have all of these social programs that are sucking money out of the economy, and then we wonder why we don't have any jobs. And we are freezing up, but there's another big factor that everybody in this room, regardless of what political persuasion you are, you should be very concerned about, and that is the Federal Reserve banking system that prints money out of thin air and robs you, robs the value of your money, creates the booms in the bus cycles, created this real estate boom cycle, and now has created the bus cycle. They did the same thing in the Roaring 20s, created the Depression, and they're doing it again, and they're ending up with confiscating all the property. And now we've got people, we don't even know who owns these mortgages. The mortgage market is freezing up. People are not, the title companies are not willing to issue title on policies because of all of this nonsense.
Well, I heard Mr. Hunter say he doesn't like to give money and pick winners and losers. I wonder why he's picking one of his former staff members to give them $26 million earmark. The company his uncle founded and gave them a $3 earmark. So to say he's not involved in it, he is involved in this kind of stuff, and it is picking winners and losers. So, no. I am not going to stand here and say, oh, the liberal wants to have the government take over everything. That's wrong. I didn't say that. I said that I would encourage 1 million small businesses to take apart. 1 million. He wants to leave it and have the separate energy and SDGD, one big company. He wants to leave it there. I say no. I say give it back to the people. Solar energy is a people energy. Everybody can own their own. It doesn't have to be owned by SDGD and Semper. You get to own it. You buy it. This is the difference. We're talking about big money, big companies, big corporate money, Wall Street, and I'm talking about you. I'm working for you.
Candidate Hunter.
Sure. First off, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry. I don't know of any staffer that has any company at all, and you're welcome to answer.
It's Lyndon Blue. He was your campaign chair in 2008.
Oh, he was a campaign chair.
He is one of your staffers then.
Okay, thank you. I take back my time.
And you asked for $26 million for general
Mr. Lutz, please.
So let me explain. Lyndon Blue is one of the CEOs of General Atomics. General Atomics makes Predators. Predators save American lives and kill the enemy. Period. I'm always going to be out there looking, whether it's a small company, a big company. I don't care who makes it, whether they're in San Diego or Minnesota. I'm going to be looking out for people that are my friends, people like me, and people like my little brother that are over there fighting, and we're going to take care of them, period. We're going to have the best military equipment you can get. Let's talk about jobs, if I could. The Bush tax cuts need to be extended, and I have actual facts. I'm probably going to run out of time. I'm going to tell you why. Please, I'm going to tell you why. East County, just this district, will lose 1,500 jobs annually annually starting January 1st. We're going to lose per household $6,000 per family in disposable income, and it's going to be a over $1 billion district-wide tax increase. That's going to kill jobs. He
Time.
will not support extending the Bush tax cuts. He's going to be a job killer.
Candidate Benoit.
Okay, well, Bush tax cuts are minuscule for me, so I'm sorry about that. We talk about big corporations and how they have all these advantages, and folks, I don't know if you know it or not, but a corporation can deduct everything it needs to exist. It can deduct its rent, its electricity, its paper, your toilet paper, you name it. How come individuals can't do the same thing? We want to talk about creating prosperity. How come you can't keep the fruits of your labor? And the other thing that when I mentioned the Federal Reserve Bank, it seemed like we didn't get a lot of understanding. It's a private bank, folks. It's a private bank. It's owned by stockholders, shareholders. It prints money and buys treasury bills with this money that it prints, okay? And that's debt for your children. That's selling your children into slavery. And we let this go on. Whether Democrat or Republican, you should let this go on. Federal Reserve Bank doesn't pay any taxes and is a privately owned company.
Take a quick minute if there are those that are in the back that would like to find a seat. Now's the time to do it. Now, I want to remind the candidates, please, of the questions. I will make sure that I repeat them each time I hand it to you. We want to stay with the questions that the audience has given and not try to get off of that too often. We'll have a chance to discuss those issues. Okay, we are going to start with candidate Benoit, and we will stay in the same order: Benoit, Lutz, then Hunter. The question is this: what is your stance on illegals and the border?
My stance is it's a problem that our own government created. And it's been creating it and exacerbating it for 40, 45 years. We didn't have a problem in 1960 or 1970. Or if it was a very minor problem. And two factors have caused it to explode. One is that they stopped the migrant worker program. It's very minuscule compared to what it used to be. And so workers started coming here illegally. And then all the ramping up, the little bit of ramping up, didn't really solve any problem. A little bit of increasing border control here and there didn't solve any problem. And you're not going to solve it if you actually put troops on the border. But then when the welfare state started expanding, everybody's up in arms because they're draining all the social services. And the idea that they can get free education, come here, get free health care, free babies, and all of that is exacerbating the problem, and it's all created by your own federal government. I propose that we take the troops from around the planet, put them on our own border until we solve this issue.
Candidate Lutz, what is your stance on illegals and the border?
I hope you saw in the paper today, they had the bakery down at the border, Otay Mesa, busted for trafficking and hiring a bunch of illegal immigrants down there. This is what we need to do more of. Those guys should go to jail. They are breaking the law. And if we have more examples of employers that really have to take a hit, then we're not going to be pro-government. The reason they're coming up here is not because there's no fence. It's because they have a job up here, and they can get a job up here. A lot of times they were bussed up here. Iowa beef producers bust illegal immigrants up to their factories to bust the unions. Another big reason is we have subsidized grain dumped under NAFTA into Mexico, killing 1.5 million farmers' jobs, and they have to keep working. A lot of it is our doing. A lot of it is our doing. Now, how do we fix it? If they have the guts to do it, which I don't think they will, because the corporations love underclass of worker. How do we do it? First, we have to provide a path of citizenship to everyone. I'm not talking about an easy path. I'm talking about a difficult path so that they don't have to be illegal. The people that are up here, I want to charge them a fine, $10,000 apiece. and charge them $100 a month. If they
Time.
don't pay it, then they have to leave. Okay, to be continued.
Candidate Hunter, what is your stance on illegals and the border?
First, two different issues. The most important issue is national security. Since 9/11, the border should have been secure the day. This is interesting. Everybody else getting booed, but liberals are always kind to people, aren't they? Border security is national security. That's the most important thing that there is, because after 9/11, people know that you don't fly into LAX anymore. What you do is you go into Central America, South America, work your way up through Mexico, and work your way into the U.S. That's what terrorists have been doing. They are here. It's border security first, because it's a national security issue. I guarantee you, if you have another 9/11, but this time with a dirty nuclear bomb or something like that, any kind of biological attack, people will scream for that border to be closed, because America, we have short memories. Even I have a short memory. You think back to 9/11, you got to have border security before you talk about any kind of plan for anything, period. Because don't trust this government. Don't trust Mr. Lutz. Don't trust anybody in Congress, Senate, the executive branch to do two things at the same time and really actually secure the southern border, because they won't do it. They'll do amnesty, and they'll push that southern border security down the road and down the road and down the road. It's got to get done. My father started it in, I think, 92, and I'm going to keep on continuing. Secure the border first, then we'll talk. First, secure the border.
Before we continue, please, let's be respectful of all the candidates. Thank you. Candidate Benoit, what is your stance on illegals and the border, is the question.
Didn't I address that?
Yes, this is your response back.
This is rebuttal? Okay, well, obviously, again, the federal government hasn't done a very good job on that. And I don't think you can police the border unless you got people on it. And I'm not in favor of spending more money to solve any problems. I'm in favor of spending less money to solve the problems, okay? So that would include bringing the troops home from around the planet, start defending our own borders, okay? And that's the only way you're going to stop people from coming across that border. You can build fences. I remember when his dad was proposing building these fences, and I was saying, you know what? When they build them, all you're going to do is push the problem eastward, and then they're going to start coming up in boats along the coast. And guess what? That's what they're doing right now. So you can't stop it until you got people on the ground, and you put Border Patrol there. You got to have a whole new military if you try to get the Border Patrol to do it. And this is for everybody's benefit, including the illegal aliens, because they're losing their lives trying to cross through the desert. We created Arizona's problem.
Candidate Lutz, again, the question was, what is your stance on illegals and the border?
Well, I just want to say I am for border security. I do think it's a national security issue, but I don't believe that building a fence is going to solve it. The reason it won't solve it is, number one, it's really expensive, but if you show me a 50-foot fence, I'll show you a 51-foot ladder. Okay, they can be gone over. I talked to an immigration attorney. I said, how do we fix this problem? You're in this all day in and day out. She said, you know what? There's the guys at the bottom, the farm workers, they have a way in. The guys at the top, the H-1B visa holders, they have a way in. Everybody in the middle, there is no path for them to follow, none. They cannot legally come in the country. So if you want to have a working system where people have to go through the system and learn English, work, pay fines, and get the approvals, then you have to have it set up so that they can't enter it. Guess what? We're next to another country here. Some people will want to immigrate. It's a natural consequence. We have to embrace that without building a border and acting like we're the enemy of the people down below. We want to get that. So it's a matter of working on the cause of the problem, not acting like a plumber who wants to fix a leak and putting duct tape on the door. It doesn't solve the leak.
Time. Candidate Hunter, again, the question was, what is your stance on illegals and the border?
First off, we all know fences work. You all have fences in your backyard. You have them there for a reason. They keep things out, right? They keep dogs out, they keep people out. We all have fences. If you go to any military base, they have a fence too, because it keeps bad guys out. On this border, you have to have a physical obstacle. Thank God we have the fence in San Diego, because if we didn't, and this is one thing that truly separates me from my opponents, neither one of them believe in having an actual physical obstacle on the southern border. What we ought to do is put that physical obstacle the entire way. When we built the one in San Diego, we cut down on drugs coming into San Diego by 90%, cut down on crime in San Diego by 50%. Just from that double border fence, you have had more people die, get murdered in Mexico than in Iraq and Afghanistan combined in a period of 2 years. It is becoming a failed narco state, and while we should help them, at the same time, it's our job to look out for America, because we're Americans. We're a sovereign nation, and we have the right to defend our freedom.
We have a comedian in the house. The question is, why do candidates all wear red ties? We won't answer that.
Because our wives buy them.
Okay, we are going to reverse order again. It will be Hunter, Lutz, Benoit, and the question is, name the number one thing you are committed to do to improve alternative sources of energy in the 52nd Congressional District. Candidate Hunter.
To improve alternate sources of energy. It's a pretty simple plan that I have, because once more, I'm not here to pick winners and losers. If the market can bear it, then do it. We ought to have solar, we ought to have wind, we ought to have gas, we ought to have everything. We ought to be drilling in Anwar, we ought to be drilling off our shores, we should be drilling for oil, because right now, the sun's energy does not power my truck. Diesel does. So until air or solar can power my truck for the same price, I'm going to buy diesel. And that's the way life is. I would love for it to be otherwise, because our enemies overseas sell us oil, we're indebted to them. But let's work on everything, folks. Let's not choose one or the other. It's not my job as a U.S. congressman to say, I'm going to pick this industry over that industry. That's what is wrong with this country right now. It should be in the American people's hands, in the entrepreneurs' hands. Let them do whatever they want to do, and we'll back it up. But it's not your job as taxpayers to subsidize harebrained ideas like ethanol. Ethanol doesn't work. Your tax money goes to paying for ethanol. Do all of the above.
Candidate Lutz, name the number one thing you are committed to do to improve alternative sources of energy in the 52nd Congressional District.
Well, I already mentioned what my main vision is, and unlike Hunter doesn't quite understand this, Mr. Hunter here. He doesn't understand that I'm not picking winners and losers. I'm saying that how you incentivize this is like the way that Germany does it. They just built 4,500 megawatts in their country last year alone. That's enough to power all of San Diego at its peak. They did it in 1 year. You know how they did it? They pay people 3 times. When you sell power back to the grid, you get 3 times whatever you can buy it for. You can say, I can make money on selling my power into the grid. Yeah, it's subsidized by everybody, because everybody is joining in and saying, we're going to help subsidize a redirection from fossil fuels that we've fought wars over. We've just been through 2 wars fighting over fossil fuels. And if we continue to go down that same road and don't turn from it, we're going to be fighting resource wars for the rest of our lives. We've got to make the change now. Now, the other thing is biofuels. Don't clap. I want to finish. Biofuels are ethanol, right, was not a good solution, but it's a first step in the direction at UCSD. They have new bacteria-based biofuels that will take any cellulosic material that we dump into the ground right now and turn that into a high-octane fuel that's just as good as gasoline. So no, Mr. Hunter, it is not impossible to do it. We can change, and I believe that we should, and we will.
Candidate Benoit, name the number one thing you are committed to do to improve alternative sources of energy in the 52nd Congressional District.
Well, as always, get government out of the way and legalize liberty. I'm glad Duncan uses diesel fuel, so he'll probably, and he wants to, allow the private market to work. So I'm sure he's in favor of legalizing hemp once again in America. And if you don't know this, the Constitution was written on hemp paper. So hemp can produce paper, it can produce diesel fuel, produce rope, clothing, it can produce food, lots of things. And it's a renewable resource, it rejuvenates the soil. Even during World War II, the American government encouraged farmers to grow hemp for the war effort. Randolph Hearst and his paper mills were the reason that hemp is illegal today. And that's what Congress needs to do, is start repealing legislation that's infringed on our liberty.
Candidate Hunter.
Yeah. One, I don't think that we should legalize marijuana or hemp at all. Two, Mr. Lutz, you know, this is what once more shows the difference. He said that we're in 2 wars over fossil fuels. We're in Afghanistan because we got attacked by terrorists and killed 3,000 Americans. That's right. That's why we're in Afghanistan. Show me some resources that I was over in Afghanistan fighting for. Yeah, we're fighting for opium. That's right. No, we're not fighting for opium. We're not over there fighting for anything. We're fighting for liberty for the Afghan people and to make sure that we don't get attacked again from a place like Afghanistan, a place like Yemen, Syria, Iraq. That's not why we're over there. We're not over there because of fossil fuels. The energy deal, once more, is simple. Do all of the above. I'm not going to come to you with a 20-page plan and say, this is my plan, this is what we're going to do. If it works in the American market, then let entrepreneurs do it, get government off of their back, and will you, whatever energy is acceptable and that we would all buy, then let's do it. But it's that simple, folks. This is a very meat and potato saying. I am not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to get them off of your back so you can do what you want to do and hopefully make money doing it.
Candidate Lutz.
Well, you know, I agree with that. We need to get government off our back and wanting to do it. But here's the difference. We have a huge corporation here who is entrenched with the government. It's called Sempra Energy and SDG&E. And they're not going to want to give away $4 billion of their profit and change. That's the difference. It is not already a free market out there. We have this big company that's in control. We got to realize that, and if we're going to make a difference, we have to make some changes. Now, PACE program was Property Assessment Clean Energy, was a good program shut down by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. We have petitions out there. Sign up if you think that's a good thing. I do. That would let people basically take the money that they're spending on their solar energy and put it into their property tax assessment and pay it over 30 years, transfer it over to the next buyer. Good idea. Now, Iraq, no one said that people attacked us from Iraq. They didn't come from Iraq. They actually came from Saudi Arabia. We went into Iraq, and it was not a war that had any reason looking back. It was there because they have a big pile of oil under the ground. And we wanted that oil, and that's the reason that we went in. That's the truth. You look at it, and you'll say, yes, that's the truth.
We didn't take a drop of oil. We did not take a drop of oil from Iraq, not a drop.
Candidate Hunter, please. Candidate Benoit.
Okay, Duncan, marijuana is not hemp. And
I have been ignorant on that.
In fact, hemp growing next to marijuana will destroy the THC content in marijuana. Okay, the cross-pollination there. And by the way, I am in favor of legalizing marijuana. Vices are not crimes, and people that make crimes, make vices into crimes, are criminals, as far as I'm concerned. So, free up the American people, legalize hemp, and watch some other alternative resources. We didn't take a drop of oil out of Iraq. It wasn't about taking oil. If you restrict the oil supply, the prices go up. It was about supporting the military-industrial complex.
Gentlemen, would you like to continue on this issue for 2 minutes? We will continue. We are now going in the same direction. We will start with candidate Lutz, then Benoit, then Hunter. What are the most important issues facing the 52nd district?
Were or are? Okay. Right now, I just came across these figures. 25% of people right now are upside down in their homes. Upside down. The banks were just busted for mishandling the paperwork. How many people here know or are in foreclosure? Know somebody in foreclosure? It's a big number. And these banks are mishandling it. It's 6.2 million that are already been foreclosed on in the country. And they're doing it as fast as possible. Now what's happening is we had a big bubble, and the speculators work this bubble up because they love bubbles. They like them to go up and down so they can make a lot of money. That's how speculators work. If it was a flat market, you wouldn't have it. It would be uninteresting. No one would invest in the stock market. They like it to go up and down. And they can make it go up and down, and they did that. They did the speculation with homeowners' equity, their investment. They went into their homes thinking, I'm going to make a buy, and the speculators, a big bank, they started gambling with it. And the banks were given $875 billion, the biggest transfer of wealth in the history of the world, just happened before our eyes. It happened at the end of the Bush administration when they still had a chance to take that money, and they took it off the table. And we had everybody scared. A big meltdown was going to happen. We didn't get any benefit. I think they should stop foreclosing, a moratorium. And I ask these people here to stand with me and say, a moratorium on foreclosures.
Time. Candidate Benoit, what are the most important issues facing the 52nd district?
Well, there already is a moratorium on foreclosures. It just happened. 50 states attorneys general have filed a legal action over this basis because they don't actually know who owns a lot of these mortgages. Now, folks, this is going to it's going to lock up the real estate industry because they can't tell who owns these mortgages. New sales are not going to occur because title companies are not going to want to issue title policies not knowing who the actual owner of these properties are. That we're close to a meltdown here. We're close to an economic collapse in the whole country, and we need to figure this out. Spending $1.5 trillion more than they're taking in, and they're not abating, they're not stopping. Duncan Hunter just voted $53 billion for NASA. I'm sorry, NASA is not a constitutional agency, and I just took some time to look over the federal budget. They're not decreasing anything. Why can't they just at least freeze it? We're close to meltdown here.
Candidate Hunter, the question is, what are the most important issues facing the 52nd district?
Quickly about NASA. NASA is vital and has been vital to our national security. Calculators, a lot of the electronics that we use, a lot of that is spun off of NASA research. You have other countries vying to beat us in space. NASA's important, one. Two, the most important thing, no one said it yet, it's the jobs. Where are the jobs? What's going on with the economy right now? That's what's important. The housing market is its own problem in and of itself. It's also a symptom of a bad economy where Californians have lost over 500,000 jobs, over 500,000 since the Stimulus Act went into place. Since the Stimulus Act went into place. We've got unemployment now nationally, almost 10%, over 12% in California. It's about getting government out of the hair of the people who create jobs, lowering taxes on the people who create jobs, letting them create wealth, letting them hire people. People can stay in their homes. People can get health care because they'll have jobs. People can afford gas, can afford their homes, foods, and everything that they need because they have a job. That's the number one issue facing East County right now, and facing the entire nation.
Candidate Lutz.
Well, actually, I did mention jobs in my opening statement. That is the most important issue, but we got to stop the bleeding. And the bleeding happens when people are being kicked out of their homes, and we're going to end up with 1 out of 4 homes empty on the street. That's going to make everybody's property value go down. You're going to have homeless living in these homes. Homeless rate went up 7.8% last year from this to last year. Food bank, 10.8 million pounds of food last year, went up to 15.6 million pounds of food this year, 50% increase. Now, the statistics that Duncan just quoted is incorrect, and I'm glad here to correct him on this. Yes, we lost jobs, we also gained about the same number. And so unemployment has been basically flat for the last few months, and that's what people are irritated about. It hasn't gotten better. And it's gone up like this after the Bush administration, it kept going, and it's flattened out, and it hasn't started to go back. So the things that you hear about unemployment, it just got worse, and that's because it's been getting a little better, and it got just a little bit smidget worse. But remember, just because you lose jobs doesn't mean you're net out of jobs. You have to look at also how many did you gain in that period, and that's what he is not including in his analysis. So keep that in mind, and so we can keep him giving you the straight answer, because those are incorrect numbers that he's giving you. Now, jobs is important. I outlined how we can get it back. That's by investing in something where we don't have to pay for it to someone else, so that money is not leaving our economy. That's a secret to getting jobs here and keeping money. $4 billion in your pocket in this county.
Time. Candidate Benoit.
When you deplete the private sector by taxation, and if you don't think you're overtaxed now, okay, I don't know what to tell you. But when you deplete the private sector by taxation, and the only way you can keep it moving, see, the cost of endless wars on the back of the taxpayer, you can't pay that, then they resort to printing money to pay for that. You print money to stimulate the economy. That printed money flowing through the banking system flowed down into the California housing market. It created your boom, okay? And then we had a boom through the entire economy here in California during that period. People were selling these houses, fixing them up. There was a lot of action, a lot of new loans. My home inspection business was doing good. And it was because this money by the Federal Reserve wasn't real. It was created out of thin air to boom the economy. And it went so far, and then when it broke big time. And how are you going to create jobs from that now? Well, what's happening is the whole private sector is going to collapse into the federal government through bankruptcies. When these mortgages fail, your AIG, your General Motors, you all have jobs. It'll be Soviet-style jobs.
Candidate Hunter.
I went to school at Granite Hills. I don't understand liberal math. I'm sorry. California lost 2%. It went up, unemployment went up 2% since the beginning of last year. Since the stimulus bill was passed, they've gone from under 10% unemployment to over 12% unemployment. We have lost in this state 500,000 jobs, thus the unemployment numbers going up to 12% when it was below 10. We've got more unemployment nationally. We've lost jobs. We haven't lost them and gave them back, and the unemployment rate would go down. It hasn't gone down. It's gone up. One issue we haven't talked about, the federal government was at fault for giving loans to people and encouraging banks and almost forcing banks to give loans to people who could not afford those homes. No-doc loans, not having to prove how much money you make, that's a problem. And then when the economy hits a recession like it's hit now, you're going to have those folks who might not have qualified in the very first place, they're going to get foreclosed on. What we've done too in this country is create a false bottom for the housing market. You have to let the market fall out, then it'll bounce right back up again.
All right, we're going to switch direction again. We will start with candidate Benoit, then Hunter, Benoit, then Lutz, then Hunter. Candidate Benoit. This week, a federal judge here in San Diego ordered that the Pentagon and the military stop enforcing "don't ask, don't tell" on the grounds of... Please, I will do it again. This week, a federal judge here in San Diego ordered that the Pentagon and the military stop enforcing "don't ask, don't tell" under the grounds that the policy is unconstitutional. Do you agree or disagree? Do you support or oppose "don't ask, don't tell"? Candidate Benoit.
Okay, well, I don't agree with one single judge taking that kind of power. You know, the legislature is supposed to make the law, and one judge like that to step in and eviscerate it is not okay. And if, you know, something like this maybe going to the Supreme Court would be a different thing. But personally, I think those in charge of the military need to make policies that are most conducive for defending this country. And that doesn't include being an offensive force all over the planet. That includes, so let's bring them home first, and then you can go over this issue. I'd rather that the people that are in harm's way over there be made safe, and then we can discuss whether or not this is an okay policy or not.
This is to candidate Lutz. This week, a federal judge here in San Diego ordered that the Pentagon and the military stop enforcing Don't Ask, Don't Tell under the grounds that the policy is unconstitutional. Do you agree or disagree? Do you support or oppose Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
Okay, I do oppose Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and I have from the start. I do admire this judge for doing what she's supposed to do and rule on the constitutionality of things. That's what her job is. So to say that she should be doing her job and that she should somehow not rule on it, you know, you have to admire. She has some guts to go ahead and rule on this and stick her neck out and maybe against some of what other people think. But let's face it, you don't have to be straight to shoot straight. You don't have to be straight to drive straight. You don't have to be straight to drive equipment straight. You don't. And a lot of other countries, Britain, France and so forth, they allow gays in the military, no problem at all. This is just something that people have to get over. They have to get over that hermaphrodite kind of stuff that I hear about. They have to get over this idea that somehow the whole military infrastructure is going to disintegrate if a gay walks in or says, I'm gay. It's not. People can deal with it. You can have someone who's gay, and guess what? You're not going to become gay. You're not going to just wither. And if Mr. Hunter thinks he can't operate if there's a gay around, I can't do what I'm supposed to do if there's a gay over there. It's going to hurt.
Time.
I don't think that's the case.
Time. This week, a federal judge here in San Diego ordered that the Pentagon and the military stop enforcing Don't Ask, Don't Tell under the grounds that the policy is unconstitutional. Do you agree or disagree? Do you support or oppose?
I disagree with her decision. I support Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I support the 93 Democrat law that said homosexuals may not serve openly in the U.S. military, and I haven't ever seen, frankly, anybody debating any time make fun of a military officer in the way that Mr. Lutz just did. That's the way we do business. The whole problem with this is we're fighting two wars right now, and to subject the U.S. military, while it's over there fighting, after every joint chief, every military joint chief has said, do not overturn Don't Ask, Don't Tell right now. Every single one of them. All four of them have said, do not overturn it right now while we're at war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Congress made the law. If enough Congress people get in who can change that law, which they didn't have in because they tried to get it passed, then let's change it. But one judge shouldn't be able to change it, and I'm going to fight to keep it the way it is. When you're in combat, when you're overseas, and as the only person here who's ever been in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, I can tell you, as the only person up here, it is a disturbance. You have young men and women, mostly 18 through 24, fighting for their lives, and the last thing they need is just kind of an interruption or a distraction, which is what this is from the real issues.
I think we should bring all the troops home and ask them each personally what they think.
Candidate Lutz.
Okay, the gays in the military, I don't think it's going to hurt. You know, what the judge did just now was say we're not going to be prosecuting or taking people out of the military based on what someone says they might be gay and so forth. You know, that's not going to change the complexion at all. Those people are already in the military. They're already usually operating well. They may have even been in Mr. Hunter's group that he works with. And he may not have known it because it's don't ask, don't tell, remember? He could have been working with a few gays. It's likely that he was. 1 out of 10 is usually gay. So he doesn't know it. He operated just fine. He says he wasn't aware of any gays in his unit. And so I think they would just operate fine. That's why I think, well, first of all, this whole thing should go away. And I agree with Mr. Benoit. Yes, let's bring the troops home from these wars. I want them ended. And I'm going to be fighting to end them both. I want them both ended.
Candidate Hunter.
You know, let me tell you from the heart, and those of you who have served know this, nobody dislikes war more than the people who have gone over there and seen it, okay? It isn't pretty, it isn't fun, it's gruesome, sometimes it's demanding, there's nobody over there giving you steak and beer, there's no movie on at the street corner. It's not fun. We wouldn't be in combat overseas if we didn't have to be. We don't send troops, we didn't send my little brother or me overseas to go die for America. What we send people over for is to make sure that we stay safe here. That is Congress's #1 responsibility. And I understand it's easy to say, we have people spread out in Germany, South Korea, Iraq, and Afghanistan, but we have not been attacked since 9/11. Think back to that day. Think back when we didn't want to go to the stadium, we didn't want to go to the mall, we didn't want to do anything because we were scared. We have not been attacked since 9/11, and if you think back to those few years following 9/11, you realize everybody thought that we would have been attacked again. The reason we haven't been is because we have brave men and women going over there and fighting the enemy. That's why we're safe here.
We're going to stay with the same direction. Hunter, Benoit, Lutz. Candidate Hunter, where do you stand on embryonic stem cell research? Do you understand or agree that this research does not cause abortion?
That's a how often do you beat your wife question. I don't understand that it does not create abortion. I'm against embryonic stem cell research. I'm for adult stem cell research. I don't think that we should be basically farming embryos from women so that we can do scientific experiments on. I'm against cloning too, and I am pro-life. Those are my stances. I'm against it. I don't think that we should be using fetuses, and I don't think we should be using embryos to do scientific experiments on.
Candidate Benoit.
I haven't looked at that in detail. I don't think it's the federal government's decision. I don't see that anywhere in the Constitution. The Constitution was set up so that the federal government was to deal with issues that were foreign to the states. And the states were to deal with all domestic issues, what's related to life, liberty, and property. And so that is under the guise of the state jurisdiction and not the federal government. And that formula the founders set up is what helped America become prosperous. That formula is the one we violated, so that would be an issue to be decided in the state legislatures.
Candidate Lutz, where do you stand on embryonic stem cell research? Do you understand or agree that this research does not cause abortion?
Well, let's first realize that basic research and development is really important for our federal government to fund. If we don't fund basic research, we're going to be completely uncompetitive worldwide because the other countries will do it. And we will be falling further and further behind. And this is one area where we have fallen behind because we have an aversion to a few cells that someone says that is a fetus and so we can't touch it or experiment or figure out how to cure some other very important diseases. Now, it's true. Stem cell research doesn't cause abortion, and they do have some cell lines that they've been using. President Bush said, let's use the cell lines. They've expanded that, and they now have a human cell, adult stem cell type of research, and they're getting away from that now. It only takes a short time when you move through that research and then you find better ways to do it. So no, it is not going to be where we're aborting babies so that we can do the research. Now, in terms of the larger question about abortion, I want to address this question. Time is up. I'll do it in the rebuttal.
Candidates, we are running short on time, and I would like to move to the next question.
Sure.
Okay? We are going to start with candidate Lutz, then Benoit, then Hunter. Candidate Lutz, how can you make a difference in your constituents' lives if you go to Washington, D.C. and become a part of a broken, deadlocked partisan system?
Well, first thing I want to do, and this is called, and I want to push on this, so hopefully these people will stand with me on this idea, it's called Bring Our Politicians Home. And it means that your politicians spend 75% of their time here and telecommute to Washington, D.C. That means the lobbyists, wouldn't be able to just walk down the hall and visit Mr. Hunter and say, I'll give you a campaign contribution as long as I get an earmark.
Sounds good to me, Ray. My
Wouldn't be able-
wife's standing right there.
Excuse me, I would like to
Stay here
finish
as much
my
as possible.
comments, moderator. Can you help me? Because he's interrupting me.
Wasting your time.
So what you do is you have the people come home. It's a lot harder for the lobbyists to go from door to door and interact with those people. And it lets you interact with your congressperson a lot easier. You can actually find them. They will actually be able to meet with you. By God, they may be able to debate. So these are things that also, I would like to do that because I don't want to have to be in Washington, D.C. when it's bitter cold. I'd rather be in San Diego. I think you can understand that. But keeping people out of that cesspool in Washington, D.C. has got to be good for us.
Time. Candidate Benoit, how can you make a difference in your constituents' lives if you go to Washington, D.C. and become a part of a broken, deadlocked partisan system?
Well, I think the future of this country is going to be very important. You have more people in Washington that are worried about your liberties and securing your remaining liberties. And I will make a difference there. And any piece of legislation that violates either your life, your liberty, or property, or is outside of the constitutional powers of the federal government, I will not only vote against, but I'll get out on the bully pulpit and explain to you how you can fight the federal government. And the healthcare tyranny bill comes to my mind. Now, I know a lot of the Democrats are in favor of that, but I'll venture that you haven't read it all and haven't looked in there and how many violations of your liberty are in that healthcare tyranny bill. It's not just enough to vote no on these things. You got to do more. You got to show people how to stand up and resist them on a civil basis. Civil resistance is vital on some of these things, and just, you know, like the state nullification of this healthcare tyranny bill. The federal government is a mess, folks.
How can you make a difference in your constituents' lives if you go to Washington, D.C. and become a part of a broken, deadlocked partisan system?
Staying back here sounds good. My wife is in the background back there, and I'm sure she's nodding her head saying, let us stay here. But the issue isn't to make D.C. stay a cesspool and not go back there. It's time to clean up. It's time for a new generation of people who care about the people who they represent, are accountable and transparent and accessible, which is what I tried to be here. It's going back there and changing it and making a difference. I've actually made a difference on a few things, even with a Democrat-controlled Congress. I've introduced legislation to make sure that Gitmo detainees can't come to San Diego. I've introduced legislation to exempt certain small businesses from Obamacare, from this disaster that's going to be killing jobs, exempting small businesses. That actually got passed with this Democrat Congress. I've been out there doing things. This has been the very first time in recent memory, the last 30 or 40 years, that we haven't had a single open bill on the House floor, meaning that anybody can amend it. It's been a closed process. It has not been transparent to you. Remember all of those healthcare behind the scenes negotiations? We need transparency and accountability and accessibility, and I prove that I've been doing that for the last 23 months.
Well, what's been proven to me is that Mr. Hunter is part of the broken machine. He's part of the kickback contribution machine. You know, he raised over $500,000 to fight me. I raised a measly $37,000. Now, where did that $500,000, how does that influence him? Do you think he's influenced at all by all the PACs, which are more than his individual contributors? You'd better believe it. He's a part of the machine. He's a part of the favors that his father set up. He inherited the seat. He's in there for them. He's in there for the big billionaires. He's not there for you, and you better start learning that. He's in for the billionaires. And you can look at his list of who contributed and see how many are you guys versus the big boys, what he's going to be ruling on for their big profits. That's what's wrong, and that's the big difference. I'm here for you. I didn't take PAC money, and I'm going to be working for you and not for those big billionaire big boy club that he's
I don't think Hunter's there for those big guys. I think he's there for himself. I'll guarantee one thing, if I'm there, I'm for your liberty. And that's what we're sadly missing these days. We're missing a constitutional government. And there's many, many issues that were talked about tonight. But the bottom line is, both the Democrats and Republicans split up your money. And they got earmarks for your money. They all have earmarks. That's what most of that $3.5 trillion federal budget is, earmarks of your money to their pet projects. And they're not there securing your liberty.
First, I'm the only person up here who's sworn a moratorium on earmarks. Not a single earmark this last year. The entire Republican Party, not the Democrat Party, the Republican Party, we all voted to stop doing any earmarks whatsoever, whether it was to nonprofits, to for-profits, to universities. The Democrats did the same thing, but they said except for unions and universities. Funny how that works. But the Republicans to go all the way. It's pretty simple. If you send somebody back there that makes outlandish claims, like he is now, and actually let me read you a little quote that somebody gave about a month ago. Democrats believe they only have one option, a thermonuclear assault on their GOP opponents, which means raising questions about their character, distorting their views, and making outlandish claims. Karl Rove is pretty good. I think he's right on the button. Because those were outlandish claims. But I'm happy to stand here and take it from both sides, because that's what I'm here for, I guess, tonight.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time for our questions. We have quite a few more questions here, and we appreciate all of the questions that you've sent in. We only wish we had more time to do this. We are going to go ahead and let the candidates take 2 minutes in which to provide a closing statement, and we will do it in the following order as we started. Benoit, Hunter, Lutz. And candidate Benoit, your closing statements, 2 minutes, please.
Okay, well, as you already know, I'm against these foreign wars, especially these unconstitutional foreign wars. I'm unhappy with the Democrats in power right now, the Democrat leadership. They have the power to end these, and they haven't done it. I'm unhappy with the Republicans, who have promised smaller government for all of my adult life. They have promised that they were for the small businessman. Well, look around at the economy right now. The Democrats or the Republicans have promised this smaller government, and from the time Duncan Hunter his father took office, the same year Ronald Reagan did, the federal budget was $900 billion. Today it is $13.3 trillion. the federal, excuse me, I got that number wrong. The debt was 900 billion. Now the debt is 13.3 trillion. The federal budget was not 590 billion, and today it is $3.3 trillion. This debt, folks, that they have left us is enslaving our children, okay? There's no other way to call that 13.5 or $13.3 trillion of debt. That's enslavement on your children and your grandchildren. I don't care if you're for all the social programs or you're even for the going to war. You have to pay for it as you go. You don't pass it on to your children and your grandchildren. That is not only theft, it's enslavement to them because they're going to have to pay that bill. And they had no say in creating that bill. We have a federal government that allows a Federal Reserve banking system, and I'm sorry that some people don't understand how that's affecting the economy, but when they print this money, it is destroying the value of your money that you have, your retirement and everything else. You're going to see inflation in the grocery store and all your other expenses due to the Federal Reserve Bank, and both parties let them get away with it.
Candidate Hunter.
First, let me say thank you all for being here tonight, because whether you're Democrat, Independent, you don't vote, Republican, I'm still your representative, and I am here to represent everybody. Second, when comparisons are made to my father, let me just say, you're damn right. I think he was a great representative. I think he's a wise man, and he was a great congressman. It's about the economy. There's been, like I said, a hijacking of the American system. There's been a hijacking of the American economy, and it happened 23 months ago. There is a difference between Republicans and Democrats. And you see what 23 months of liberal rule, of Nancy Pelosi, Obama rule, does to this nation. It puts us where we're at right now. But this has been kind of, I would say, a little bit of a pessimistic debate. There are a lot of things going wrong with this nation right now, but there's a big light at the end of this tunnel. Why? Because we're Americans. And we are going to take this nation back. We're going to take this government back. We're going to reduce spending. We're going to reduce government. We're going to get government off the backs of the American entrepreneur, the American business person, and we're going to let freedom and liberty thrive. That's how we do it. And there is a light, because the American people, we're going to win. We're ingenious. We're inventive. We're entrepreneurial, and we can take the country back. It's going to happen in November, and I think you're going to see a much more transparent and accountable government come next January, and you're going to see a check on this executive power, these czars, the government takeovers of business, the stimulus. We're going to give the stimulus money back to the American people. It's your money, and we're going to be more transparent and accountable than this Congress could ever dream of being. So thank you once again for coming here tonight, having the interest to take part in this, and thank you to both of my opponents for being here as well.
Candidate Lutz.
We heard a lot about deregulation, that's the answer. That's pretty much what Mr. Hunter has. This is his plan: deregulate business and everything will flourish. Alan Greenspan just admitted that he was wrong, that we had too much deregulation, and that's why we had this financial meltdown. Think back. We just had 8 years of a Republican rule. We went from a surplus at the end of the Clinton administration down to a total meltdown. Do you remember that? That was Republicanism at its finest. And if we turn back to deregulation, we're going to have the same problem again. So I implore you. Now, he mentioned his father, and I would ask Mr. Hunter to repudiate the actions of his father as he sat there and watched Mr. Randy Duke Cunningham take those bribes. His father knew about it. He was the chair of the administration. Now, this is important, because I don't want this to continue. We have a legacy, a dynasty. dynasty here, where the son inherits a seat from his father because of a convenient name. People were confused in the election. Now, so we have a big choice to make here, and the difference is somebody who will work for you, because I don't take PAC money, I don't take the big money that he does. I'm working for you, and that's the difference. I'm going to be able to get these things started because I know how to do it. I can get manufacturing back in this country because I know how to do it. You've got to go from warfare mindset over here to manufacturing and a future where we can take control, we can take that solar energy, and we can advance. And that's the direction I want to turn it. So I ask for your vote. I ask for you to vote for Ray Lutz for Congress. And I can do that for you. And I wish you tonight the best of Lutz.
You got a better chance to get
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we are going to conclude our debate. I'm sure that you agree it was very educational. Had an opportunity to see our candidates up front. I'm glad we did this. We want to thank the San Diego East County Chamber of Commerce for putting this on, the Cuyamaca College for hosting us. We want to thank you all for being here, and we especially want to thank our three candidates